Hey guys, this is Tolly and welcome to Let's Build a JRPG. Last time we left off, we were building out the scene. We grabbed some of the models that I've purchased over the years, mainly these kind of cuboid dudes and these monster type guys, and we just started placing them in the scene, trying to set them up in front of the camera in order to try and replicate the reference image. Also talked about why we're doing 3D instead of pixel a little bit, kind of made some comments about the fact that 3D is just easier to work with and it's harder to find consistent pixel images that all kind of fit one style. At least when you're trying to prototype something, just it tends to be a little bit easier to work with the 3D stuff. So got the 3D scene set up. This is actually a bit different. So in between the last stream and this one, I did change around a couple things. This is what we had by the end of the last stream. Still wasn't super happy with it. I played around with it a little bit in between the and kind of got something that I'm feeling a little better about. One of the main problems I really felt like we were going to run into in the future was in this first setup we laid out and played with throughout pretty much the last stream. This terrain had a lot of like height variance, which meant that different characters would be like stepping into the ground, and like there'd be some problems in the future. Whereas if it's perfectly flat, we could kind of get into that. What I want to see is in the old school like Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI style, these characters, when it's their turn, when you tell them to attack, they like step forward, do an animation, there's a particle that happens, the enemy takes damage, and then they step back. And like I want to try and maybe replicate that, and if the terrain has like actual depth to it, then them stepping forward, we're gonna have to do a bunch of collision to make sure they don't clip through the ground. It's way more work than we need. So for this alternate scene that I set up, let's just flip this alternate scene off and then go to, or the first scene off and go to the alternate. We've kind of flattened it with this flat terrain piece. I went and found another free asset set, which is no longer up, but it was this Hexlands low poly style. This seemed to be some sort of set that was built around maybe building some sort of hex game like Civ. A lot of these pieces down here are like just hex items, or tiles. But the way that these are designed is with a material, and that material actually works really well if we just put it on a flat plane. So this plane here, we dragged in this Hexlands _ desert low, and we kind of get a flat plane, but it's not one color. It's like a little bit diverse so that the ground doesn't look just plain. And like this allows us to also drop in some other ones. Like I was looking at, even like this wood texture actually doesn't look terrible to me, or reminds me of a bit like of a Grandia 2 style look or something. But a lot of these kind of look like they could work as just ground textures. Even like not that one so much. That one looks like they're giant with the river, but like this could even work as maybe like if we were in a cave terrain. Not perfect, but for the sake of like prototyping and getting like a concept across, I think these will work way better than the terrain model that we had in the last set or last stream. So kind of set this up. We're doing good. The goals for this stream though, which I forgot are on screen already, but these goals up here are what I'm going to try and strive for. So I'm done playing with making things look right. I think that there is more work on making this look like the way I want it to, but it's a prototype and we need to move on with actually building features and functionality. Play with the look forever, but at the end of the day, need to build something, or I want to build something. But I will say that I still think that maybe that's too far. Maybe pulling the camera out to here might actually end up with the characters looking a little closer to the size of this reference image. They actually look a bit too big with the current camera size. So I may play with that. But again, not touching that right now. We're moving on. So what are our goals? So our goals, if I open up this screen, I think I might be able to get my, oh no, okay, I can't do that. All right, so we're gonna try and get importing the ability design data. I want to work on getting the characters that each have their own set of abilities that appear in this ability command menu. So if we hit play and we see where we're at, most of the code we've gotten is around these action bars filling. When the action bar fills, we open up a command menu or action panel. and that action panel has one hard-coded button right now, which is just says attack, and when we click it, all it does is set that current character's action bar back to 0, and then everything continues, and we can just keep going over and over. This should actually have it so that when a character's action bar reaches the end, it looks at that current character's ability set and then populates a menu with their specific abilities. So in order to do that, first we need to import the ability design data. Then we need to set up the action bar to load via that character's current data. Then we need to set up the submenu to, so it's getting a bit ahead of myself, but some of these menus will be stuff like black magic. And when we click black magic, instead of just performing an action, it will bring up a submenu here, which will allow you to select between like fire, ice, a couple other abilities. So we need to get submenu loading working. We need to set up the character art to load via design data. So these models right now are just hard placed in the scene. I'd like to have instead positions that we load these characters in at. And then when we start the scene, we load the character design data with the characters loading in at point 1, 2, and 3. And then I'd like to set it up so that once those characters are loaded via design data, we'll have reference to these models, and then have it so that when we click an action, the attack, the character will actually perform an animation. Won't do any damage, won't do any of that, but I think for this stream in about an hour and a half, probably, we'll probably go for about an hour and a half. I think that if we could get it set up so that we can import the abilities, set up the action bar loading, set up submenu loading, set up character art loading, and have it so animation plays based off a specific ability, I think we'll be doing really good. In preparation for that, I have set it up so, let's see, that's there. Okay, and that's there, good. I have set up a bit of design data ahead of time. So if we go to here, and drag this in, and you know what, let's drop the goals menu for now. Oh, did I accidentally close that? I did. Okay. So, in here, we went and modified a couple things. We went to the abilities panel, and I've basically inputted a bunch of data. So, a lot of this setup is around just kind of what I think the basic data we're going to need for these abilities. I'll walk through quickly. I did this off camera because a lot of this isn't necessarily interesting to watch, I don't think. And it's not really like I'm making a lot of design decisions per se. I'm just kind of setting up the type of information we'll need. And then this is really how I build. I build the design data based on what I want the game to do, and then I take that design data, import it into the game, and then figure out all the classes and all the information based off that design data that I need to build to support the functionality that the design data is trying to create. Sorry, I'm just gonna... Okay, cool. So let's break down this design data real quick. So what we've got is every ability has an ID, which the characters will reference. We still have a little bit of work on the character tabs that we need to set up, but I wanted to leave that for on stream. So the characters will reference these abilities. So your character might know Black Magic Fire 1, and that will be referenced in this design data. So these characters, we might make a set of lists here, or we might start separating these out into other lines. I'm getting ahead of myself. Point is, they'll know these abilities. This is the name that will show up in the menus. This is what ability, okay, where that ability will show up. So if the attack is an ability, it will show up in the main menu. If the character knows cure or fire, cure would show up under the submenu white magic, and fire would show up under the submenu of black magic. So these are just straight up abilities. Same with these are just straight up abilities. These abilities here will appear on the main menu. These abilities here are basically just set up to appear on separate submenus. In order for this to work, we also need to have an ability for opening the submenu. So the way I've set that up is there will be Black Magic. Black Magic will be an ability that appears on the main menu, but instead of having like an attack or an animation or something that triggers, instead it is flagged to open a submenu, and the submenu that Black Magic opens is the Black Magic submenu name. And so when you click on this ability, it would open up Black Magic, and it would show all abilities that character knows of the type Black Magic. Make any sense? It'll become clearer as we build, but this allows us to dictate, like, okay, we're going to have an ability, this character is going to have the ability Attack, the character is going to have the ability Black Magic, and they're going to know Fire and Ice and Wind. And then when we open up the game, once we get this design data created and imported correctly, when you click on Black Magic, it'll open up a submenu which will show Fire, Ice, and Wind. That's what we're trying to achieve. And this structure of data should allow us to achieve that. Some other things that I'm not necessarily going to implement in this stream, but I'm just future thinking about a little bit. So maybe we'll just hide these columns as we talk about it. We have multi-attack, so whether or not an ability hits multiple enemies. We have the power, so this is a % bonus that this ability has based off the base stat. So like attack would be based off a character strength stat. It's a 1-to-1, so it would just get times by 1. But cleave was something that I set up to be a multi-attack idea, and it would have a 40% the power of the main attack. Again, not really going to get into that right this stream, but some more ideas, so we'll just hide those columns. Elemental type, again, same idea. I'm thinking that some of these abilities might have elements tied to them that enemies might be weak to or resistant to. Also, the idea of status effects. I set up the idea of like Defend, a pretty traditional RPG ability, and we would want to have it so that when the character takes a defend action, it would want to have a 100% chance of 1 being 100%, 0.9 being like 90%. That's how these ratios are working. Rather than straight numbers, it's just easier to write it between 0 and 1 for percentages. But it would have a chance of, or 100% chance of applying defend. We also probably, actually, now that I'm talking this out, we also probably want to add a target, whether or not the ability can target self, whether the ability targets self, targets an enemy, targets an ally. That's probably other data we'll need to add into here at some point, but we're not going to worry about that for today either. We will probably worry about animations and then particles and sound effects. I haven't filled any of that out yet, but those are other columns. So this is really the data we care about at this point, at this stage in the game. So we want to import this. So we're going to go File, Download as TSV. Same way we did with the character data. We're going to put this into... where did I put that folder? One second. I thought I had set this up to auto open to the right path, but I must have since done something. Okay. I found the general path, so we go into here, we design data TSV, we want to have this download as game data ability.tsv. We download that, and we should have the ability now to start building the class that we need. So the way we did this before, if anyone has forgotten, is we set up a character parser. We're going to duplicate that. We're going to make a what is this? This is going to be an ability parser, so this is going to parse ability data in. We're going to have it so the ability parser, Visual Studio opened in the other window. Okay. We're going to have it in here. We're going to have this thing here have abilities. Maybe just ability. How does one spell ability? That seems wrong. That seems right. Okay. Character. Instead, this is ability parser. Change this name so it'll, the tool's ability parser. We're basically gonna do kind of a replace of character with ability. Maybe it should be abilities. Whatever. It doesn't actually matter. It's just a name. It's not like it's a novel. No one will ever see these words outside of the stream. If it was ever like a real game, no one would know. So it is fine. Missing ability data. Okay, now we need to set up some new classes. So we had the idea of a character design data in here. So we're going to make a new folder. That folder is going to be ability. And then there's going to be create C#. Actually, it's faster if we just duplicate the classes we need. So, yes. I didn't mean to double click. I meant to Control D. Drag these into the ability folder. Change one of the themes so that we are not listening to the same song continuously. And then this will be ability info view. Actually, no, I don't need this yet. I just need the design data class. Ability design data. This thing is going to have two classes inside of it. That's why I was thinking I needed two scripts, but I forgot that I put both classes inside. So we have an ability design data holder, and we have an ability design data. Now, this class needs to hold the same information that the design data has. So I'm just going to open this design data in a separate window, and then I'm just going to start copying out some of the variables that we are going to need. Alright, so we're going to need ID and name. We're going to need whether or not it opens up a submenu. So bool m open submenu. We are going to need the name. We're going to need the name of the menu it belongs to. We are going to need to know the name of the submenu it opens, which will be another string value. And I guess the final thing I need for this stream anyways, because we're not going to get into all those other variables that I've started to add in there, we're going to get into animation. And for the sake of right now, that should be all we need. I'm just going to rename a couple of these other variables. Okay. So we have an ability design data. We have an ability design data holder. We are going to go back into the ability parser. Again, we're continuing to replace the word character with ability everywhere in here. In fact, just to make our lives extra easy, we're going to do a find and replace all in file. We do not want to replace all in solution. We just want to replace in the current document, and we want to replace character with ability, replace all, not found. Oh, because we have it on whole word. Okay, there we go. Cool. So now this has all been changed in here to the word ability. Now, for the sake of simplicity, we're gonna look at each of these values. Because we're not going to deal with any of this other information today, I'm actually going to just drag this over here. And we're just going to be concerned about this data set. Everything else past here is just hide until later. Okay, so we know 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, also this is just These checkboxes are just zeros or ones. I've just set up a data validation on it. So essentially it uses a checkbox in the spreadsheet, but 1 is checked and 0 is unchecked. That's all that is. I know I just didn't explain that right away. Okay. So let's download this TSV because we've modified the position of some of these columns. Save again, replace. And then in here, we know that it's going to be in the exact same order, right? We're going to read in an ID, then we're going to read in a name, the menu, then open a submenu, then submenu's name and animation. Okay, so the order of these variables is also the order in which we're going to find them. So if we grab these, go into here, we can do, we already got the ID and name set up. And then we want to do the menu, then open submenu, submenu to open, and then the animation. All right, now the menu is going to be another string value, so we don't have to parse it into anything else. Just take it in as a string. Oh, I doubled up, didn't I? Oh, no, this was supposed to be submenu to open. Okay, this is going to be a bool. So imagine I can do bool parse on this element. 0 is name, 0 is ID, 1 is name, 2 is the menu it belongs to, 3 is whether or not it opens a submenu, 4 is the submenu to open, which will be a string. And then animation, which will also just be a string. This one here is a little more advanced in that eventually we would want to have something like red magic, and red magic would be a menu type that when opened would show any abilities that character has learned of white magic, black magic. So this would basically, if a character knew cure and fire and we gave them the red magic ability in their main menu, then when they click red magic, it would show them any white magic or black magic that they've learned. For the time being, we're just not going to use red magic, and we're not going to worry about the fact that the information in it is going to be kind of messed up. We would actually need to do some more stuff, but we're just going to ignore red magic for now. I'm just trying to call out spots that people might just be like, that's weird. All right, cool. That all looks like it should work. Ability design data JSON, ability design data.json, ability TSV is where we're reading in from. This is where we're putting it out to. We don't really need this debug log anymore. Same thing if this is a copy, then we don't need it here either. Just get rid of it. Okay. That should be it. That should be parsing in the ability design data. At least into a JSON form. We still need to set it up so that this data imports when we start the game. So if we go tools, ability parser, that should have parsed in some ability JSON, and it didn't. There was an error. Missing design data. Okay. It didn't find it. Oh, is that because I've changed some of the folders? Where does it think it is? It thinks that it's in the JRPG assets. The JRPG, so that's here. Design data TSV, yep, that's here. Game data dash ability.tsv. That should be this guy. Interesting. I don't see the bug I've created. There's no extra spaces? No? Interesting. No, same fail. Users, JRPG, assets, the JRPG assets, design data, TSV, game data.ability.tsv. That should be right there. Why is it not finding it? Sorry, I really have to look at this to try and figure out what is it complaining about. Okay, let's try characters. Does character parser work? No. I see. The JRPG assets. There's a G missing. Oh, coding. 90% of it's spelling errors. Okay. Now, do you want to work for me? Work! I swear. String was not recognized as a valid Boolean. That's fair. Parse bool didn't work. So instead we can just do int.parse. And then we're going to use it for clean of code, an operator like this. Okay, so what this is doing is this is parsing this string into an integer, which we know from the spreadsheet is either going to be a 0 or 1. If it equals 1, then set this to true. Else, set it to false. This is, I forget the name of this, but this is a specific way of writing basically an if statement in line in which this is the case statement. This is basically defining it as this special kind of like inline if statement. This is the if true part, and this is the else part, essentially. So this will now get set to true or false based on whether this is a 1 or a 0. Or more specifically, if it's a 1, it's true. If it's anything else, it's false, which is really the wrong way to write bools, but you know what? Let's not get into that. Usually it's if it's 0, it's false, and if it's anything else, it's true. It's semantics about more hardcore people than I. Let's say that's good, and let's try ability parser one more time. Directory not found. That's going to be for the same reason. On this side down here, this also needs a G. I think I realized the spelling mistake somewhere in between or during an off stream. Somewhere in when I was changing around the folder structure, I realized that I had misspelled this or left the G out of the JRPG part and fixed it, but I had not anticipated that it would have caused this issue. I should have saw it. Okay. Tools, ability parser. Did an error. Hey, ability design data. All right, now we have this design data in the game. which is great. Let's go back to our goals. What were our goals? Import ability design data. I'd love to cross this off, but technically there's still one more step, which is that we really should get it showing up in-game, so, or being imported at runtime. I might want to... I want to write a new class. So this is not something I originally thought I was going to do today, but we're going to do it because I need to do it at some point, and I want to get it done before we start adding too much more broken code. Game design data manager. Design data manager will be a Singleton. Actually, let's grab this guy, paste that into here. Change this to design data manager. Okay. Get rid of all of this concept of action ready and all this nonsense. This can all go. Okay. Now, what this thing is going to do is it's going to hold all of our data for us. On start, we're going to load all the information we need about our characters and our abilities. This is still probably not the final version of how all our data will be held, but this is at least better than it hanging out inside of the combat manager. Okay. And we are also going to load the ability to design data. Can I serialize this? So there's ways of writing code in which, rather than making a function that directly references something, you can instead give it a template and say, hey, this will take some sort of type. Technically, it's okay with that. The problem is when we deserialize the information, we need to know what function to actually put it in. I don't use templating a lot, but this seems like it would probably be the best way to do it rather than writing a bunch of functions over and over again. The question is, how do we actually get it so that when we get that design data back and we deserialize it? So basically what we're saying is, hey, on complete, make this function, which is a templated function, and in that template we want that anywhere that T is to essentially be replaced with character design data holder. So that's great. So then when we load this up, we can have this essentially, which says, hey, once you get the data back, deserialize the text object into a character design data. But we can't do this because it needs to work for both versions. So it needs to work for whether it's a character design data, ability design data, or any other design data that we create. I think we need to go up a level. Generics. That's a video. We're not watching a video within a video. This is still a video within a video. So I'm trying to figure out I feel like the right answer is a little more complicated. I guess I could look this up off screen, but you guys were saying that you do enjoy watching me try and figure this stuff out sometimes. I think I want to template it Singleton. These are all not the way that I would think to do this. Oh, I've seen this done before. Most of this is just Singleton logic. I'm actually looking for templates. Maybe it's generic is actually the right word. I want to make a Singleton class. See if we can figure out the syntax here. Okay, so this is how we have it written right now. This class inherits from Singleton of the type of me. So instead, we want to have a design data manager, which is templated to be a Singleton of me template. Does that work? And then the template would be the type of design data we're holding. We have to pass this in somehow, so instead of calling start, we would need some sort of public void init. That takes in a string value, which would be the file name. Actually, this is technically the addressable name. And then we would want to load a text asset of that addressable name, and on complete, we don't need to template this function anymore because we've already got a template from the class itself. We want to set my design data to be of the templated type. Okay, let's finish this, and then I'm going to talk about what nonsense I've just written, and I also don't know if it's going to work, so we'll see where this goes. So we got core. There's one other thing I need to do. Technically, this type of singleton isn't a mono behavior, so I want to make a new type of singleton class. I don't know why Unity likes to open up the file. So this is going to be singleton. I guess I renamed this one to be this is a basic singleton, I guess. So this is going to be the exact same as our normal singleton, except for this one is not going to be a mono behavior. Basic. Cannot convert. Do we have to have that mono behavior thing? We're dabbling with forces I don't fully understand. Find of type doesn't work here. So we want a singleton that isn't a mono behavior. So we want Unity singleton non-mono behavior. Singleton without mono behavior. Right, but I need the syntax, people. I guess technically they're saying I don't need instance, maybe? Maybe this singleton T. No, I definitely need the templating aspect. Okay, we just need to find an example. I know what I'm looking for. I just need someone to help me with the syntax of it. Just don't need a mono behavior version of it. And that seems to be what everyone's referencing. There has to be a way of doing it without it being... Singleton union can be an example of chat windows, but if... Right, but I still want it to be templated. That's the thing here, is a lot of these suggestions are like not helping with the template aspect of it. Maybe we go back and continue to knock our head against it a little bit more. So it doesn't know how to return null. Cannot explicitly convert null to templated T. Find object of type does not exist in this context, and that's because it's no longer a mono behavior. It's all the same responses over and over again, which seems to be implying that maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Maybe I'm asking the wrong way. Honestly, Google just sees the word mono behavior. Generic. If we got rid of the word unity, what if we were just making a generic singleton? What would that look like, Stack Overflow? Where T is a class. Now we're getting somewhere. No complaints there. Now I don't know if we need all this find type stuff because it's really just the templated object. And here, this is adding a new object of this type, blah, 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 because it needs to make it into a mono behavior. So this was searching for an existing instance, so we don't need that. So basically, if it's null, instead we want to just set instance to a new copy of this class. That's how singletons work. We don't need any of this persistence logic. We don't need shutting down or any of that logic. We don't need this. I'm sure I've messed something up. Don't need to worry about lock. Now this looks like something. Okay, basic singleton. We template of the type class. This templated class will then have the variable instance. Oh yeah, this is way more readable. Okay. It'll have a variable of that type, of which is the class, and then it will also have a function essentially, or an accessor for that instance, which if there's not one created, will create a new version of it. Okay, got there. Now we need the data manager to not be a singleton but a basic singleton, which is a whole lot of templating, but here we go. And then doesn't need the update function. Now that we have that, now we can go back to here. And now we can create a new class again. This isn't really the design data manager anymore. This is really... it's really a design data holder. The storage, really. I think I've seen this type of thing referred to like that before. Okay, so then we have, now we need another design data manager. This will be the true manager because we've kind of converted what we wanted to be the manager into a storage class. Design data manager. Okay. Does not like that name for some reason. Why are you... There's already a design manager. Why is that not showing? Okay. That's super weird. Alright, whatever. So this is technically not the design data manager, but the design data storage. This is technically a singleton. So I was going to build a singleton that thus initializes these things. So the singleton I'm trying to create isn't a design data manager anymore. We already kind of have that figured out. What we actually need is something to be a design data, or to be a loader. Something that's going to load all this stuff. So we need the manager that's going to be in charge of loading things. Loading manager. Come on. There we go. I type it all and it took a moment for it to catch up. Loading manager is what we need. Okay. Which we want to be a singleton, and then this thing on start. Let's see if this works. Design data storage of design character design data holder dot instance dot init with a string. All right. An ability design data holder. So this is a singleton templated with the type character design data, which makes these two different singletons. These are two different classes. One is a class where the template is this variable, and one is a class where this is the templated variable. And if we go inside of this thing, we will initialize it with an addressable name, which will then load into its design data. And then if we probably want to make this into a function, it just gives us more control. If we return type design, I guess this is technically just data. Return design data holder. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so then these things actually just need their names, which are character design data is the name of the file for the character design data, and this one is abilities. Now, inside of Combat Manager, is loading is something we set internally. So now we're not going to access this data through here. We're not going to access it through here. We're not going to... We are still going to want to do this step. Okay. The difference is instead of doing this, which is directly converting it when we get it, we're instead want to grab this data storage class, which will have the data once we initialize it. Dot instance dot get data. Is that not what we called it? Oh, we just called it data. Okay. Cannot convert member group data to non-delegate character holder. Did you intend to invoke the method? Oh. Okay, get data. So this will work, but only after we have called loading manager. Which means this can no longer be a start call. This will need to be an initialize call, and loading manager will have to be in charge of initializing this stuff. And now for each of these classes, we could have it set so each of them has an is loading or has a is initialized, which is set to false. That's probably still the right call. We could also make it so that there's just a is loading manager finished call. We could add a variable in here which is loading complete, and then all these spots where we need to check, we could just check if loading is complete. But it's probably fine to have an initialize is initialized, which is false. And when we get initialized at the end of the function, we set it to true. And then if is initialized, oh, this should be m underscore. Copy, paste, copy, paste. Who calls you? Slightly annoying to have to put this check on every one of these calls. So this one we don't have to, because this one will only ever get called if initialize has already been set, so we're doubling up on logic there. And then perform action, again, you shouldn't be able to get to this function unless you've gotten a current character active. So this is the only one that needs it, but by rights this shouldn't have it. It should really just be on the character view manager that it has its own initialize as well. Init which then gives it its own variable. This is the type of stuff where I feel like I might want to start templating even more, because all of these classes are going to have this exact same logic. We can deal with that later. We haven't even got past my first goal. If not initialized, set it to initialize when true. Starts as false. Let's double check to make sure this logic was correct. It's not. It should return if it's not initialized. If it's not initialized. Good, good, good. And then in the loading manager, we want to initialize now the view as well. So once the So basically the loading manager is going to be in charge of making sure that everything is set up for us. Not character, combat view manager. Okay, so singletons must be initialized by the loading manager. Otherwise, nothing will work. And then this guy is going to load up the character data and put that into here. All right. Fair enough. Okay. So we've done a bunch of refactoring on the way we load stuff. Let's see if it breaks. We've just done a bunch of coding for a while. Well, I'm not going to get through everything I wanted to because of that, but that was a really important thing that we needed to set up. Okay, so that didn't break. So now we need to make a new object, which is going to be the loading manager. Loading manager gets this class. Okay. Now when we hit play, things should still work exactly the same way they did before. They do not. All right, let's get rid of... There's a message right now that's complaining because we have 2 listeners because we duplicated the last camera or added another camera. So we need to get rid of one of those. Actually, we got rid of it from the wrong one. Nah, it doesn't matter. Most of our audio will be in 2D, not 3D. So what are you complaining about? Null reference. All right, well, I'm glad I got debugging working. So something about this templating is not working, I think. In concept, it should. Okay, so we are now debugging. We have our this attached. So now if we hit play, it should hit the start function. Okay, so we are going to F11, which is going to enter into this singleton and immediately break. So there is that weirdness. Oh yeah, okay. This is still a singleton. There was a weirdness where my files got duplicated. I don't know if you remember a few moments ago, like I went to try and rename a new design data manager and it was like gone. It looks like something, okay, we can't change code while we're debugging. It looks like somehow some of my changes got reverted at some point, but that was the thing. We wanted to make this a basic singleton. So it was trying to make it a mono behavior singleton and it was complaining because it was being dumb about that. It can't be a mono behavior singleton, which is why we made a basic singleton in the first place. But because that change didn't get saved somehow, it was trying to make a normal singleton for that data, which broke. Null reference inside of here. Okay. So we got through the initial set of the loading data then, because it got down to this initialize. So let's attach, try and figure out what we've done wrong. All right. set up, we hit play. Oh man, I haven't changed the music at all. Let's go to Battle Loop 1. Because things are getting intense now. We're debugging. Okay, so we go into here. We create a new instance of this variable. We will return that new instance. Wait. Are we not calling init? Duh. Alright. These things aren't done. We are calling init on these things. But when these things get called, we set a function to be called when they're completed. This function hasn't been called yet, thus the design data hasn't been set, but we're trying to initialize. So we need to have some way of knowing when all of our design data is completed. Addressables, coroutine, yield. I'm not familiar with this piece of code. Let's use it wildly everywhere, and then look up what it does later. A wait operator can only be used with an async method. Is this not an async method? Load asset. Hey Kazukish, welcome to the stream. I don't know enough about a wait to make this work. Really, I want to yield, like what they're describing here. Okay, people are just complaining. Research. Lots of people talking about things. I don't feel like necessarily going through that with a fine-tooth comb right now, so how do we just get this to work? Well, for now, the hacky way is to add in a bool, which is data loaded, which is set to false by default, and then this gets set to true after we call this function, and then we make this a public variable because we're going to delete this when we find a better way to do it in the future. And then this needs to call a coroutine. So it's been a while since I've set up a coroutine from scratch. How do we set up a coroutine? Everyone says we should stop using coroutines. I agree, but for now this is the way that we're going to do it. So coroutines, enumerated fade, start coroutine fade. Okay, this is the code I want. I want this thing here. We want this here. Load all data. A load all data is going to do this stuff. and then we are going to start coroutine. So coroutine is this magical little thing that basically just says, hey, run this function, but kind of treat it like multi-threaded, but not multi-threaded. So instead of being like, hey, this is going to happen line by line by line, instead you can kind of add moments where you're like, hey, pause this coroutine or pause this function until a later frame, and then at a later point pick up and continue from where it left off. What don't you like about this setup? Let's go back to the example. Start by string name. Is that really how we do it? Don't feel like that's how we do it. Default coroutine is resumed on the frame. Really? We call it by string name? Seems so weird. Don't feel like I've ever done that before, but if that's what the sample material is telling me to do, not all things return. Return null. There, you happy? Good. Now, for each of these things, we need to yield, return, data loaded. That's not right. Wait for? Wait until. How do I use a wait until? I think I might need to new it. Unity. Scripting, wait until, example please, yield, return new, wait until. There we go. This is the thing I need. I need to yield, return, wait until, design data is loaded equals true. This is terrible. This is bad. But it works. Do I not need the semicolon? I don't need the semicolon. Okay. And then we're going to do the exact same thing down here. So we're going to yield return until the ability data is loaded. And then once... yield return null? Okay. So we're going to yield, as in pause this function until... And we're going to wait for this to be true. And then once this is true, we're going to move on. And then once this is true, we're going to move on. And once all of that is done, then we're going to initialize. This is also the part where you'd probably have, like, in this loading manager, you might also have a loading view manager that checks the loading manager to see if it's loaded. And at certain things here, you could say, hey, the percentage of a loading bar increases each time one of these things is loaded, so that you can have something that progressively, like, you could show a loading bar while all of this is happening. Okay, so now we have the data loading, and hopefully there's no more bugs. Asynchronous operations, they mess with my mind, but I think figured it out. And if this works, we'll see the progress bars moving, and it didn't work. Lame. Who's calling you? Okay. Oh. Okay. Sad. Alright, well this needs to have the do not initialize. I feel like there's a better way to set this up. I'm gonna think on that. It's not a problem that I can solve in a stream right now. Why? Because you need 0? Okay, here's 0. There. So, okay, so I think we're fine. I think it's really just an initialization problem that we ran into. Magic? Still not quite there. Exception encountered. Resource manager, completed operation, text asset resulted in failed. Unity invalid key, exception thrown. Interesting. Log exception. Something failed with the addressables. Namely, that I didn't give one of the addressables a name. This thing was set up in the addressables. This was not. I just wrote code as if I had done this. Okay, so now we've set this up so that this will be loadable at runtime. Now we have both design data set up. That was an easy problem. Okay, progress bars. Holy moly, Batman, we got there. How long is that taking to load? So basically we can look and see when this stuff starts moving, or, okay, we hit play. None of this was moving for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It's 2-second load. There's like a 2-second load. So we could, in theory, add a loading bar over top of this and it wouldn't be instantaneous. It's kind of neat. I do kind of feel like another better way to do this would be for these particular ones. If we had a, what is this doing? Addressables load asset async. Part of the problem right now is that we're saying, hey, load these assets and then wait until this asset's done. Now load this asset and wait until this asset's done. It would probably be better to let the system go, hey, preload a bunch of assets and let it handle loading all of them. Maybe there's some overlap where it can load multiple simultaneously. So it'd probably be better to do some sort of, addressables doesn't exist here. This use case needs to be at the top in order for it to know what addressables are. Load. Is there a preload? Preload? What are all the functions I have access to? Download dependencies, get download size, initialize async, and load assets. There isn't a preload. I thought that I saw somewhere in some of those forms there's a preload, but maybe not. Maybe we just do this. This is probably better so that they both get called and then we wait until both are complete. Technically speaking, each time we call yield return on this function, this will wait at least 1 frame. Even if it's done, it'll take it'll stop for a frame. So this having 2 of these back to back makes it so that we are always wasting at least 1 extra frame. And if we were to add more design data, we would waste even more. So we probably actually want to have is design data complete, and then is design data loading complete. Return if it's true and this one's true. And then as we add more design data, we just keep adding to this function. And then this function just goes here. Wait until design data loading is complete, which just checks to make sure all of them are true. This is technically slightly faster by like a frame. Okay. Magic? We should see this be slightly quicker. Sorry, I was looking at stream stuff to make sure quality's fine. Oh man, we're almost out of time. And loaded. Now 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It's about the same. Okay. Well, I tried to make it a little bit quicker. Alright, so what have we done? Import ability design data. Technically we did that. Technically we did that. I'm going to say that with all the extra work we did around that system, oh wait, I think it's Alt Shift. Wait. Why? There we go. Alt Shift 5. Alt Shift 5. Really? How did I... Not sure how that got moved. I must have zoomed out on a different sheet. Okay, so we've imported the design data. Now we have to set up the action menu to load via character data. Okay, so that involves kind of going back to the design data sheet again. We got all this data in. What do we got to show for it? Not a whole heck of a lot. So for the time being, let's say that the main character has the ability attack. And they have the ability... Let's say they also have defend, even though I don't think defend's going to end up doing anything. And then let's have the next character in the list have the ability black magic, and then no fire and ice. Eventually I'd like to do data validation on this section, but I might do that off camera and then just show how it looks. And then the final character will know white magic, and will know cure and holy. Okay. This person knows 2 abilities, this person knows 3 abilities, and this person knows 3 abilities. Make download TSV. Overwrite the old one, save, modify the parser to take in this new information. So if we go into character parser, character parser will now look at element 4 to be an integer. Technically these are integers as well. This will be a int ability count for I. Oh, we're already under I. Let's go with j. Int j equals 0, and while j is less than ability count, we plus I, sorry, j, and then we are going to make it so that we do, inside of here, we're going to keep a public list of uints, which is the IDs of all the abilities that this character knows. Ability IDs. Hope. Okay, ability IDs. So now we have It is when I can fit in the time, Rob. I'm sorry if it is inconvenient, but I have things I am trying to accomplish. I am on a roll, or at least trying to be on a roll. We wrote some crazy code. You should check out the archive. It took a while, but we did some ridiculous stuff. Okay, so we got ability IDs, and then we want to add a new ability ID. At some point, I also need to find a replacement for this animator string hash, because I don't know if there's a guarantee that this is a unique value. But for now, we'll continue to work with it until it bugs, and then we'll replace it with a true hash at some point. We can do element 5 plus j. So this is going to parse. This needs to be character design data dot m abilities. It can just be an int, it doesn't have to be a uint. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're taking in the ability IDs that we've set. What is that emote? What is it, Rob? I can't see. I can't tell. Oh, it's a money duck. Okay, so we grab the ability count. Again, this isn't the final way. There's a better way of setting this up, which I'll do in the future, but we're running out of time, so I just want to try and get something more working here. So we're saying that oh, we need to move these out of the way. We're not using these right now. We're just going to move them to the end. We'll worry about sheet organization in the future. So that doesn't really work for me. Okay, we'll just, what is this column really? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're expecting column 6 to be a number. That number will be the number of pieces after that, and then starting at column 7, which will be 0 for the first index. So at column 7, we are expecting an ability ID, and then that'll continue going forward until we reach the number of ability counts that are listed after. There's a better way to do this. For now, this is quick and it'll work. Okay. So now we can have infinite number of abilities listed at this point further with this system. Okay, so now we take in this data, download as a TSV, characters, save, replace, go back into the game, we do tools, character parser, ran into a null reference. This thing has never been initialized. So above here, we have to actually initialize this list. So there should be a new list of ints. Okay, that's the problem. Great, simple problem. Character parser, run. Another null reference. Oh, we didn't give it enough time to actually run, so I have this thing in the way, but normally you have to let the scripts compile. Once you go back into Unity, I hit parse before it had a chance to compile, so it basically ran with the old code. Okay, that should have worked. So yeah, this now has a series of ability IDs tied to it, which should tie into, so attack is 108829965, and the first character should have an attack, which is 108829965. Okay, so now that character references the attack ability, so that's good. Excellent, moving on. Now what? Okay, so we've got the attack ability, or the abilities importing. Now we need to set up the action menu to load based on the current character data. How do we do that? Well, we have an action panel. That action panel contains a layout. That layout needs to have a series of buttons under it. We could initialize these buttons, or we can just do this and then have the action panel view, which we need to create. Just have a reference to each of these and then change their strings rather than initializing. Yeah, I like that. That's fine. So we want to have, I don't think this is necessarily, maybe it does. Ability is maybe where this goes. Ability or main action menu. Main action menu. Yeah, sure. Main action menu. So this thing is the main action menu. I did not want to open that. I don't know why every time I make a new script, Unity's like, did you want me to open Visual Studio? I see you made a script. Do you want to maybe look at that script? No, Unity, I did not want to make, I want to drag it into where I need it first. Now I'll open Visual Studio. Okay, so this thing here is just a mono behavior. It just exists here. We're going to go with grabbing. So we want a list of those objects. So technically each of these commands need to be their own class as well. So create a new C# class. This is an ability button, essentially. So this is an ability button. Doesn't. Oh, it hasn't finished compiling yet. No? Why are you complaining at me? Can't add script ability button because script... Oh, there's a null reference somewhere. Oh, I started writing something and it saved. Okay. So each of these things need to be an ability button. Actually, it's probably easier if we just delete all of it but the first one and then just duplicate them out. So we have the original one, we add the ability button script to this. This thing is going to need to take a... Okay, what do you need? You need to have a reference to a piece of text, specifically Text Mesh Pro. So using, we have to add Text Mesh Pro to this thing. TM Pro dot nothing? Nothing? Okay, good. Public text mesh pro u GUI m button name. Okay, cool. And then the main action menu will have a list of these. So public ability buttons menu list. Okay. Helps if it's actually a list. Fantastic. Okay, so where are we at? So we now have a menu list, which will have a series of ability buttons. Those ability buttons will have a reference to the text under them so that we can then modify it to be whatever the name of the ability it should show. So we want to drag this piece of text into there. Then we want to duplicate this 4 times. Then we want to come into the action panel. We want to drag each of these buttons onto here. We can open up the list so we can see that they're getting dragged in. So now we are going to have 4 abilities in that menu list. Good. Definitely a good first step. Next, we need to make it so that that ability list is... Oh, what do we need? We need to have that ability list updating based off of whose turn it is. So, where do we turn the action panel on? That's the part of the code we want. we want to have wherever the action panel gets turned on in here. So in here now needs a reference to the main ability panel, because this is the combat view manager. This thing handles everything. So we want to have this thing have a reference to that panel, or that menu. At which point we don't really need the action panel, because this thing is technically the same reference, I think. Let's see when we drag it in. Because this is where the, yeah. Did I not save? I didn't save. Okay. So we don't need this anymore. We can actually just do .gameObject. Because we know that they share the same spot, or the same object. We could keep it separate, but it's just whatever. It's fine. We don't need more references. These things will get huge with variables over time. Try and minimize them as much as I can. Okay, so now this has a reference to the script, which is main action menu. Now we take main action menu. YouTube's been super quiet. I know there's like 6 of you watching there, but I just want to make sure that chat just isn't showing up for YouTube. Because I'm only seeing Twitch, but maybe you guys are just quiet. That's whatever. I'm not going to... But I mean, there's not... If YouTube just isn't showing up, then there's no way you could tell me anyways if I'm just not seeing it. So we have the main action menu. We take this main action menu. We're turning on the game object. We don't need this to just be a toggle on anymore. Thank you for the A-OK. Huh. So, sorry, here's the... let me keep talking. I'm getting a little burnt out. I need to stop here in like 2 seconds, but I just want to get this part working. We spent a long time refactoring stuff in this stream, and really we had like a set of goals, and so I just want to do like at least the second one, which is getting the data showing up. Okay, what am I doing? We need to have some way of knowing once any character is ready for the first time, which the way we do that is by, if any character is ready, we set a current active character. And the view manager has just been toggling on the action menu every frame essentially, but there's not like a direct call of this is the moment when we have reached the end of the action bar, which feels bad. Now, I don't necessarily want... A general rule of thumb is view managers should check with like backend managers, but backend managers like combat managers shouldn't talk to view manager. It's just simple things that makes it so that when you're using singletons, things get less spaghetti codey. So if that's the case and I want to keep that data structure set, I think I want to have a variable in here, which is that not just when current active character, but I think I want to have a public bool for is character ready? Is character action ready? Is character action ready? And this gets set to false by default. And then when this thing is false, we want to do... When we set a current active character, we want to set it to true. And then we want to write a function. And we want to have that function be that once we want to get is character action ready. And then if m character action is ready, we want to set it to false so that it only is true one time and then return true. Otherwise, we return false. Okay. Now, in Combat View Manager, we can write an if statement which says if combat character manager blah 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 is ready, then we set the action panel to true, like so, and then we do our setup. We do our setup. This is where we do our setup. So this is the moment we've been trying to get to, or what I've been trying to work towards, is we want to go in here and we want to do a function in here, which is basically saying public void set up action menu. Okay. Don't know how I feel about this thing calling directly to this variable, but I think it's okay. For now, anyways. Current active character. Okay, this is a character model. From this character model, we can, I guess, there's no way we should get here and this is null. I'm still going to add it just in case. If null, do nothing. Maybe do a debug warning, because you shouldn't be able to get here. Debug. Log error. If somehow we've gotten into this function and the current active character isn't set, then something has gone horribly wrong. How could this have... No, okay, real code. No active character to set up menu with dash main action menu. Probably should keep capitalization. Or just copy and paste. .cs. Okay. Now, once we're in here, we can grab from the active player the IDs of the abilities that they have. Which is not public knowledge. The character model doesn't actually tell us anything, because we haven't set up a few extra variables that we need. At the very least, we need to know this character's ID. Now, whether or not this character model should have its abilities in it is a question for another day, but for the time being, we can just say no, it doesn't need it, and we can just pass in the ID. as part of its constructor. And now here we'll have access to that ID, which allows us to gain access to its design data. We do data storage, character design data, dot instance, dot data. Design data holder dot data. Character design data. Which is going to be a list of design datas. So you know what, for the sake of this, we'll do a temporary variable to hold this, just because it'll be easier to show. Like this. Okay, then from this list of character design data, we want to really, we need a dictionary would be better than what I'm about to write. So this makes me think that I might want to think about adding a dictionary somewhere so that we can do faster lookups of this data. In the meantime, we can do for each character, or honestly just put all of this data I'm trying to gain access to directly into the character model so that we don't have to write all this code. Yeah, you know what? Let's just do that. That's probably way faster than what I'm trying to write. Let's just make it so that there's a character model. Character model has, again, a public list of integers, which is the abilities, ability IDs, and this ability IDs get set when we initialize the characters inside of Combat Manager by doing something like this, and then comma, not period, character design data equals to character design data dot m a bit IDs. Looks like I'm using capital D elsewhere, so we'll try and keep with that standard. Yeah, this should also be capital D. Okay. Consistency. It is a thing. Don't need the semicolon. All the red lines go away. That means we're writing good code. At least I'm pretty sure that's what that means. Now, instead of getting the ID and then trying to get the design data and then get the ability out of the design data, instead we can just grab the abilities directly in the character model. And then for each... Well, now we still need to write some of that code, so let's bring some of it back. It's just now, instead of trying to access the character design data, we need to access the ability design data. So we need the ability design data. We need the ability design. This is why I feel like it was faster, is that I'm going to have to write this code anyways, so it's probably easier to just start here. Okay, so now we have the ability design data here. Okay. Cool. Now we have The ability to design data is taken out. I am starting to think that maybe this ability design data holder shouldn't actually be holding a list of design datas, but instead should be holding a dictionary of design datas based off of their IDs. Because then we would be able to just immediately grab this data rather than having to do a for each loop to find it. Optimizations exist in this world. I guess it's my job to find them. What if we wrote this instead? Does this just work? Because if this does, that means I'm also doing it on parse. If the code I'm writing works inside of the parser, then we don't have to worry about the at runtime slowdown of having to parse all the design data and put in the links. Where's a semicolon? I forgot. Here? It's because all this code's in progress. Stop complaining about in progress code, Visual Studio. Just figure out that I'm in the middle of writing stuff and I'm jumping around a whole bunch. Okay, so now if this works the way I think it does, which I believe it should, when I do parse, I should parse all of this data into a dictionary. And that looks like a dictionary. This is the key is its ID. So now we can just grab all of this information directly. So instead of having to do any kind of lookup, we literally just grab the design data, dictionary, we don't need a for loop. Oh, the magic is real. Int, comma, ability design data, find the key at mAbilities dot, well, index 0. For int I equals 0, I less than the abilities count plus plus I, loop through the data, grab the ability at that index, grab all of its information. Okay, so then we want to do... What are you complaining about? If I is less than the count of the list, then we can do all this nonsense. Sorry, this part's a little weird. So I think what I want to do is this. loop through the count of menu list, which is going to be a count of 4 objects. If I is less than the count of the abilities, then we can go in and set the ability. And we can also go menu item I dot game object set activity to true. Come on. Otherwise, else, set it to false. So we only see items that are set up. And then for this ability menu item, the only thing that we really have to set up at this point is the button name dot text is equal to the ability design data dot name. Holy moly's Batman, I think we got there. Okay, so we're setting up the action menu. We grab the ability design data. It's a dictionary. Then we loop through the menu list. We go through that, and anything that is from the current active characters' abilities, IDs, if I is less than the number of abilities, then we set up that index. So we go through and we go, hey, element 0 in the menu list. Is element 0 less than the number of IDs in this current active player? Yes, there's an ability 0 basically. Then go in, grab the design data for that ability ID from the design data, and then use that design data's name on that button, set that button to active. Otherwise, if there's not an ability at this menu list index, so if we're at level 3 and there isn't a level 3, or if we're at button 3 and there isn't an ability to match that, then that button gets turned off. Batman. Holy moly, Batman. We did it. Just work. Just work. That's all I want. Just work. We've set up all our references, I think. The action menu panel has a reference to all 4 of the buttons. There's a bit of a load time. This thing doesn't turn off right away, so we need to make sure that it gets turned off. There's some no references. Great. Okay. Unfortunate is this. Okay. Clear the console. What did I break? What did I get wrong? It's the dictionary stuff, isn't it? You don't like the dictionary stuff. Yeah. What did I break with the dictionary? Key not found. Set up submenu. Okay, so it got pretty far. Specifically on line 31. Interesting. Very interesting. Somehow, one of the characters has an ability that isn't referenced in our design data. White magic, attack, magic, ice, holy. This is where data validation on the spreadsheet side would probably be helpful, because I think this is more than likely a spelling error somewhere in here. Somewhere in here we messed something up. Alright, well, let's find out exactly where. Let's go into here, set a breakpoint. Breakpoint's already set. Set up the debugger, and then let's run through real quick. I can feel it. We're only moments away from seeing this actually work. There's some other breakpoints still in here. We'll try and get rid of as many of those as we can. Okay, we got here. So we are looking at the current active character, which has 3 abilities, which are these. Okay, let's add watches for this. Add watch. Couldn't figure that out. Okay, fine. Can you figure out this variable? Add watch. Yes, you can. Okay, and then open up the abilities. Okay, these are the abilities. So under the ability design data, we have 13. Do we see a negative 2.6? We do not. Do we see a negative 6.3? We do not. Do we see a negative 5.8? We do not. Interesting. So if I had to guess, I would say that the animator.string hash that we're using is not producing reliable results. Okay, that's unfortunate. Let's go into here. Let's take a look at what these IDs are, and then let's also parse in the character data and make sure that that is because we're going into the abilities here. Okay. Stop this. We're not getting reliable hashing, I think, is the problem. Our converting string to int function that we just found randomly in Unity is probably not reliable. I mean, that kind of breaks everything, because we need the things to be able to reference each other. You're complaining because we're technically still on a breakpoint. Let's stop debugging. Clear, and then start debugging again. Okay. Let's parse in the ability data. Okay, we hit here. So this element here is attack. Attack becomes ID 10. See, that's consistent. I've seen that number before for attack. Okay, still fine. You know what? Let's say that's okay. Let's say that that's all coming out correctly. Something about this data is incorrect. In parsability, we're contacting the Combat View Manager. Really? Why are we contacting Combat View Manager inside of here? What line is that on? Parsability line 25. Where did we write that? How in the... Okay. Is it because we access to Singleton and some... Not sure why Unity's complaining about that, but we're going to move on. I don't see how it's getting there. So then we go to Character Parser. So inside of Character Parser, this is the ID for attack. This should be getting set to that same number. It is. 1080829965. So the attack is set correctly. Huh. Black magic, fire, ice. White magic, cure, holy. This character has these numbers, -265305575, which should be white magic. And white magic is not that number. Okay. What about this? So we knew that this was 1088299965. 655. Okay, then the second ability that this character has is supposed to be defend, if I remember the design data correctly. It is supposed to be defend. Okay. So we have to then check in here, which is going to be -172453736. That is still the same number. Huh. Okay. Okay, I think this is where we're going to have to call it. I think there's some sort of bug, but I'm out of time, so I have to just leave it here. I'm not sure what I'm missing, but there's something... Because we're grabbing the IDs here. These are the ability IDs. And then the character parser is supposed to be grabbing these IDs. And for the most part, for like some of the characters, it seems fine, but for others, it doesn't. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I think probably the easiest, quickest fix to this is to go in and make it so that... I'm just going to go in and quick edit this directly rather than go through importing the file. We're going to make this 205 so that this character goes first, because if the data is correct for the attack and defend on this guy, this shouldn't break. This should just work. Because that's what I'm seeing. It looks like new character, which basically has black magic, is got the wrong data, but this one does not. This one is setting the data correctly. So something is broken somewhere. Are we setting this multiple times? Why is this getting called multiple times? Get is character active. This is getting called multiple times and it shouldn't be. If it equals null, then we can set a new character. Okay, last time. If it works now, it works. If it doesn't, we're gonna leave it and I'll maybe look at it off camera, but there's a bug here. Attack and defend. Attack and defend, 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 attack and defend. Crash, 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 crash. So the other ones are crashing. Attack and defend work, but everything else is broken. Okay. So there's something going on past that point. There's some sort of bug involving, once we get past these first three abilities, possibly something to do with these ones here, something's breaking. And the IDs don't match between here and there. Okay, I might also do some data validation because maybe there's some white space difference between the names as well, which could be causing it. For now though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. We almost got there. I think after we fix this one last bug, we're going to have it so that when these bars fill, we're going to be able to show the ability names based on that character coming in from the design data. And so we'll be able to add more abilities to these characters, eventually set it up so certain abilities only unlock when the character is at a certain level, blah, 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 blah. Standard Final Fantasy stuff. And then the next stream will continue off by trying to get, well, this bug fixed. If it's not fixed between this stream, I might fix it in between the next stream, but we'll have this bug fixed at the beginning. We'll figure it out. And then the next thing is making it so that when we have an ability like Black Magic, when you click on Black Magic, instead of like just continuing, it would instead bring up a sub menu, which would appear, we'll have to create it, but appear here, which is with a series of buttons for all the abilities that you know of that type. So you would click Black Magic, it would show up a list here of Fire, Ice, Wind. You'd be able to click one of those. And then the whole thing would close and it would move on to the next character. Eventually moving into when you click one of these things, an animation happens on the characters and eventually they attack the enemy. Slowly you kill them, an encounter ends, and then we reboot the encounter. We are getting there, but it is taking a bit of time. But I feel good about the way that we refactored a lot of this stuff. So overall, I think it was a good stream. You guys let me know. But for now, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, guys.